Okay? Okay. And anyway, I'm just so humbled and grateful, you know, for all of you, and I'll basically be just presenting in very condensed form some of the many wonderful things that all of you have been so very kind and taught me over the years. And I can't start naming names, or that would be the whole 40 minutes of the program, but I do have to embarrass Dave Kuhn, who I've worked with, has been so kind, especially over the years. And back in 1986, what is that, 36 years ago, right? David introduced me to Scioto County archaeology, so, but thanks to all of you. Like I say, I can't start naming names, or that would be the whole program, but thanks, my extreme thanks to all. What we'll be doing this evening is, this program will be exactly 40 minutes, which means at 10 minutes until 7, we will adjourn up to the Wirtz collection area, where Steve, besides the Wirtz collection to look at, Steve Valentine here has graciously brought a whole table full of fine, wonderful, archaic period artifacts from the area for people to look at. And then there's a second table from our Clarke-May Museum of archaic period artifacts. And Steve's are to look at and admire, but we brought our touching collection from the museum. So the ones that you see on the museum table are all out of cases, or the cases are open. Those are to be touched and examined. So we'll go up there at 10 minutes until 7. Now, as Emily said, this evening we'll be talking about ancient people in this area from about 8,000 BC to about 2,500 BC. And I hope folks were paying good attention to what Emily was saying. Why are we starting, a rhetorical question here, why are we starting at 8,000 BC? Because by then, people had already been here for 3,000 years. So who remembers outside of Emily, who's paying attention why we're starting at 8,000 BC?
There's already a Paleolithic schedule.
That's right. In a few weeks, Dr. Metten Aaron will be giving a wonderful paleo lecture here. And he's an international expert on the Paleo-Indian period, and will do a superb job. So make sure you come back to hear Dr. Metten Aaron's program, because it will be totally superb. And anyway, so 8,000 years, 8,000 BC to 2,500 BC is still a long time. So we're just going to hit a few high points, because we're getting how many thousands of years into like 35 minutes here. Anyway, does anyone here recognize Big Rock in western Jackson County in the picture on the cover slide here? If we do or not, it's still Big Rock. Big Rock, western Jackson County. We won't go into it this evening, it's off topic, but there's a very, Big Rock has had a very interesting, history in the last 150 years or so. So I encourage y'all, when they have time, get on your computer, do the Google search for Big Rock, Jackson County, Ohio, and an extremely interesting history. Now, I touch the thing here and make the bifocals work. Aha! Okay, what we're going to do is there will be a really short introduction of things. Then the last 3/4 of the program are going to be basically looking at artifact pictures, what we all like. So, anyway, however, I would be there's 2 natives of Scioto County that have had humongous impact in Ohio archaeology, and also on my own life. I need to salute both of them. Here we see on my side, we see Clarence Blaine, who owns the Blaine Village site that's now at the Eastern Avenue and a Route 23 bypass, the interchange at Chillicothe. That is Alvin McGraw, that's pointing to the ground like this. And also, as Gary Argerbright knows, Bob Harness's 2 dogs, Doc and JD. This is about 1966. And anyway, but Alvin McGraw, let's see, advance here. Okay. Alvin McGraw lived to be 91 years old. Born a new Boston resident. He was born, in the Portsmouth, New Boston area, 1909. His father was killed in a hunting accident when Alvin was just a boy. When he was still also just a boy, he went to work in the steel mills in New Boston. Those of us that knew Alvin, he had extremely interesting stories to tell us about Prohibition period in his life as a young man there, but that would be an hour program there. Then, during the Depression, Alvin cleared up in northeastern Ohio. He had a grocery store in Warren, Ohio, up by Youngstown. During World War II, he looked at aerial reconnaissance pictures, and like myself, Alvin was colorblind. But he said during World War II, they purposely recruited some colorblind people and some normal people to look at the same images, because he said for those reconnaissance photos, the colorblind people could bring out certain things and recognize them. The regular people could see other things. So that was Alvin during World War II. Then at the end of World War II, after World War II, he had a really great big farm of a couple square miles at the eastern edge of Chillicothe. But also, Alvin was truly the patron of Ohio archaeology. He supported about every archaeologist working in Ohio for decades, opened many doors. One of my own major benefactors, I mean, if it wouldn't be for Alvin, I very likely wouldn't be standing in front of you here today. So we certainly salute our own Scioto County native Alvin McGraw. Then moving on here, one more person. Let's see. Okay. Louis A. Brennan. How many of us recognize Lou's name here? As you know, Lou was one of my favorite books of archaeology in 1959, No Stone Unturned. It's, although a lot of the facts have changed with more work since 1959, a very insightful and, as a journalist, very well written, in one of the first books I had in archaeology as a child that I just read to pieces. Anyway, okay, moving right along. There's Lou Brennan. He was born in Portsmouth in 1911, just 2 years after Alvin. Graduated from Holy Redeemer here, then went to the University of Notre Dame. During World War II, he commanded a small gunboat in the Pacific Theater in World War II. But then he came back and farmed for a couple years after the war, but being a novelist and wanted to be a large newspaper editor, he left for the Lower Hudson Valley and bought a home in 1948 in Sing Sing, New York, on the Lower Hudson, where he had a very distinguished career as a novelist, newspaper editor, and also was the editor of the journal Archaeology of Eastern North America. And then Lou died in 1983, and I had, the honor of knowing him for about the last 8 years of his life. And in fact, the Lower Hudson Valley chapter of the New York State Archaeological Association is called the Louis A. Brennan chapter now. So another very eminent native of Portsmouth. But we came to see arrowhead pictures, so let's move toward them. There. Okay. Now, however, at the Clarke-May Museum in Circleville, we are very, interested in studying the prehistory of the entire greater Lower Scioto Valley Basin. And as you folks can see here, north is to the on that side of this map. So we're basically studying the area from Portsmouth through Chillicothe, through Waverly, through Piketon, through Lucasville to Portsmouth. and then also the Jackson-Wellston area in the, because of course the Salt Creek Basin is indeed part of the Lower Scioto Basin. Okay, there we go. Aha. Now, I only have 3 slides with writing here, but this is what, we're doing at our goals at the Clarke-May Museum as far as archaeology goes. We working together toward better understanding ancient people in southern Ohio's Lower Scioto Basin region. At the Clarke-May Museum, we maintain a Geographic Information System, or GIS, database, comprehensive regional archaeological database, and the artifacts included in the database have been found by farmers, artifact collectors, archaeologists, and the general public, and including most of you, if not all of you, and I thank you again. Okay, and the last one, nearly the last one that has writing on it. The information contained in the database is essential primary data necessary for learning and teaching about the lives of ancient people in the Lower Scioto River Basin. And for those of us that might see this in recorded form, that just means if anybody wants to participate, contact me, please. Oh, all of a sudden, that's great. The keyboard lit up. Did you do something, Emily, to make that happen? Yes, it just now lit up, and I can see the keys to advance it now. Good news. Anyway, and a book, going to recommend here. It shows the kind of work being done in the North Carolina that we're doing, that we're doing right around here. Okay, now, okay, and again, this is just the area around us here, the greater Scioto County area. Who was paying attention? What was that, 2 weeks ago? Yes? 2 weeks ago? That Dr. Shoemaker was here? Mm-hmm. Who was paying attention? What is... Come on. There. Remember that from Dr. Shoemaker's talk? That's right, yes. Anyway, but we don't need to go over all of that again. The light just went off again, but that's okay. Anyway, as Gary Arterbright, that was just last night, wasn't it, Gary? That we were sitting listening to you. He gave a great talk, including a whole lot about the Archaic Period that we're talking about tonight. And was just mentioning that unlike some of the later Terminal Archaic, Adena Hopewell, Fort Ancient periods, where we have rich, larger amounts of remains, basically what we have from the Archaic Period around here they're stone tools. So we're going to see a lot of pictures of stone tools tonight. Some of the oldest ones that we have around here are what we call the Hardaway side notch. And again, I'm sure most of us realize all of these names that we have are just ones that archaeologists have made up. They have nothing really to do with, the history of the type itself. It's just, we have to call them something, so we give it a name. We could just, call them like B20, type B21. Or type C or something just as well. So the names are all arbitrary. And again, we say, oh yeah, this is so old, that's so old, that's so old. What we really mean as archaeologists when we say, oh yes, your point here is 3,000 years old, what we mean to say is, my current hypothesis is that your point may be about 3,000 or whatever years old. I mean, because number one, we have to find them in dated deposits where there's charcoal or something, like in an ancient hearth, or in an ancient, let's say, build-up stratum like of bottomland where there's charcoal. Then let's say if we see, first of all, the first inference is the charcoal near the artifact is of the same age, which may or may not be the case. Number two, so then let's say we date, we find, let's say 20 points of any type in context, and let's say 15 out of those 20 times, they turn out to be a certain age. Then by another inference, us archaeologists say, well, because most of these that we've dated tended to be a certain age, all that look like this are that certain age too. So again, when I or other archaeologists say, oh yeah, it's this old, it's that old, we're saying is, pending further information, this is our best estimate. So, and again, the ages are all approximate, give or take, 1,000 years or something. So, but I mean, they're good, they're good, probably pretty accurate general estimates, but should not be taken as more. So, my dating sermon is over now. That is over. Amen, and thank goodness, right? And thank goodness that's over. Anyway, back to some more arrowhead or point pictures, knife pictures. Or as I should say, Mr. Argybright, right, projector point knives, because many of them were likely knives. Others might have been dart points or spear points. This is the period before the bow and arrow as far as we know. Anyway, the good old Enoch Thebes from about 8,000 years BC. And you can see how this type has been resharpened. The one on my side is from Vinton County. We can look it up, but we know the exact site. Middle one from Vinton County. The one on the far side is from Richmonddale at the mouth of Salt Creek. But anyway, this shows how a lot of what we find has been very much resharpened. We can see how much the one on my side has just been resharpened, a little bit of this type. The one in the middle, a medium, and the one on that side is resharpened down to a stub, just a stub. But that shouldn't be surprising, because when we find pencils, like in trash cans, they're not the big, long pencil. They're the little stub that won't even fit into the pencil sharpener anymore. So usually, what we find archaeologically are tools that are used up that no longer work. Okay, there. Also, some of the Thebes are of the more corner-notched variety. These things, also about 8,000 years before Christ. For those of you that might remember, near Richmonddale on old Route 35, before the 4-lane was put in, but just north, going into Richmonddale from the north, there was a small rest area, and that one is from the field right behind that rest area. But again, Thebes points are just called after Thebes, Illinois, and have really nothing to do with, what they would have called the point in ancient times whatsoever. Okay. Now, we have the Kirk corner-notched point, named after the Kirk family at the Virginia-North Carolina border. But, again, I always, respect, folks' privacy, but most of these folks, most of these points have been found by people that are sitting right in front of me here, so I thank all of you. But of course, respecting, folks' privacy, I don't go say, oh yeah, they have that one at home, or they have that one at home. But again, thanks to all. But you can see both of these 8,000 year BC corner notch points, see how they've been resharpened down to stubs. The one on my side is from Richmonddale at the mouth of Salt Creek. The one on the far side, the dark colored one, it's from Sunfish Creek, up in the Idaho, Byington stretch of Sunfish Creek up there in Pike County. And again, comments are welcome, because monologues, even my monologues, get boring after a while. So if somebody has a comment, say something, please, and relieve everyone from just having to listen to me go on here. Okay, now, about 7,000 years BC, we get to what we call the McCorkle bifurcated base. And what does bifurcated mean? In general, I mean.
Two loads.
Right? Two, like the peace sign in your finger, or the victory sign, right? It means split, two, and you can see how, if we turned it, with the base up, it looks like Mickey Mouse ears, right? Looks like the Mickey Mouse ears. This is one is severely patinated, but it's one of my favorite, flint points, really, in Ohio. And it was found on an Elk Fork of Raccoon Creek, just a little bit east of MacArthur. But again, you can see, even if it weren't broken, it has been resharpened down to a stub. Okay. And some more of the bifurcated points. Both of these are from Sunfish Creek in the whole Idaho, Byington, Kincaid Springs stretch in there in western Pike County.
Are these all local?
Yes, please say something, somebody, because we need more relief than just me talking. Yes, please.
All made of local materials?
Almost all of these. Well, no, some of them, like perhaps the one on my side, might be made out of the ones that out of the flints that wash down from in the glacial gravels in the rivers and creeks and streams. However, now a lot, but there's no outside of glacial gravel flint. There's no flint deposits in Pickaway County, outside the gravels in the river. None in Pickaway County. No bedrock flint in Ross County. None in Pike County. And now in way eastern, in way eastern Scioto County, we might get into a little bit of the Vanport. Way toward the eastern part of Scioto County. But a whole lot of the artifacts around here, the flint artifacts, will be made from the flints in the whole Hocking, Jackson, Vinton, Lawrence, eastern Scioto County area.
Carter.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
What about Canoa?
And once you cross, because guess what? The prehistoric folks were allowed to cross the Ohio River. They were allowed to. So, like you say, the Canoa, the Carter Cave or Paoli, whatever you want to call it, in a host of others. Then to the west, Jeff Wilson's here, isn't he?
Yeah.
Can you say out loud, wherever you are, Jeff, the kinds of flint that we have? Oh, right, I was looking over your head. And what do we have around in the Greater Serpent Mound area then?
Well, to the south, in the same Brush Creek River Valley, you have two kinds of flint deposits: Bisher and what's the other one?
Brush Creek.
So thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
So again, outside of the river gravels, right in the Scioto Valley itself, we're kind of poor in flint, but we're surrounded to the west, to the east, and to the south by fine flint deposits. So anyway, but again, figuring out what deposits were used in what areas around here at different times, a fun puzzle to work on. Okay, there's one of my favorite ones from Vinton County there. A resharpened to nothing 7000 BC, a LaCroix bifurcate. But no, we won't go into this in detail now. It's not the time or the place to do it. But you can see there's a map of a physiographic map of southern Ohio, basically from Pickaway County down to northern Kentucky, west to Hillsboro, and east to Athens. And like there's the, each of those black dots is a single specimen of one of that type of point. But then in our studies, we'll have another map that shows it by raw material, another that might show it by resharpening stage, and then cross-reference them and this and that. And that's the point of all the work that we're doing.
Jeff, I have a question.
Please.
You've mentioned a couple of times now on a couple of these that, for instance, like you said, like Thebes points were named after Thebes.
Yes, yes, Jeff.
Is that from where they were originally located? And
well, actually, what happened with all these, it's whoever named them, but, I mean, folks are naming points all the time. The names that stick are usually the ones that are in the report that gets the widest distribution.
Right, okay. So my question is, on something like this,
yes,
you've got a physiographic map of southern Ohio.
Yes, Jeff.
But does that range extend far?
Oh, absolutely. And again, you know, when we're, I mean, because, you know, this room is full of folks, you know, that we all work together all the time. So when we're in our, you know, our study sessions, our work sessions, our visiting sessions, you know, then we can get out those, you know, maps in detail. But, you know, there have other maps that like show the distribution, as Gary showed some last night, Gary Argerbright, that show them, all of them, wherever they are in the world, yes. Which, of course, is usually over a large portion of a continent. But Mr. Argerbright's about to say something.
Something that would be useful to people that want to locate the range of a specific type is just go to the internet.
Ah, yes.
Type in LaCroix projectile point, and it will take you to a site called projectilepoints.net.
That's a very handy website. Very handy. Very handy. However, a little hint here. What parameter, whatever the word is, changes over the long terms of thousands of years in the environment? A little hint, look at the picture. We call it climate, right? Now, and again, this is from No Stone Unturned, and Lou Brennan called that chapter of that warm period long, hot summers. And more recent research shows that this period of, you know, warmer than it is today, drier than it is today, extended from about 5700 BC to about 2400 BC, with the maximum warmth about 5,000 years BC. And that's also the period that the Western Prairie expanded eastward into what's Ohio, what we call the Prairie Peninsula, but that's a whole nother program, of course. But you know, climate change isn't just today. Climate change happened throughout prehistory, and it's, like I say, we can't go into detail here tonight, but it's really fun to try and figure out how, you know, distributions, use of these different tool types might have changed in response to climate change throughout prehistory. Another fun thing to study. And from that period, we have some of these Kirk stem points, as they're called. And you can see how these are totally used up in an asymmetrical way. So unless they're used to shoot around corners, these must have been knives. But who here besides me, either themselves, their parents, or their grandparents, had a favorite, like, you know, say, paring knife, butcher knife, fillet knife, that was almost all totally used up and was just ever so thin because it had been sharpened so much? I know my grandma had her paring, you know, her paring knife and cooking knife that was almost as thin as a toothpick because hardly any of it was left. And my grandpa, for cutting meat when he would butcher the hogs, he had his butcher knife. that was, that was metal, but it was this, it was so thin anymore because it had the width of the blade had resharpened away. And the same happened in flint tools. The one on the side here is by the Clarke-May Swamp by a pyro in Jackson County, and the one on the far side is from Raccoon Creek in northern Gallia County. But see how they're just totally, the used up knives. One more resharpening and they would have been gone. So that's likely why they only went this far. Then they threw these away and put fresh ones in the handles. Okay, Jabot. Okay, and just kind of neat the way some, artifacts almost look like they almost could have been made by the same person. I'm not saying that they are, but the one on my side from Ohio Brush, a Creek near Serpent Mound. I know that one has been displayed at Serpent Mound Archaeology Days, different times by a friend of ours that's a fine artifact collector in Adams County. But then the one on the far side that's so similar from me, that's from Lincolnville up on Baker Fork of Ohio Brush Creek, not far south of Fort Hill, but of course just a few miles away from Serpent. Okay, just about. And we only have like 9 minutes left, so it's almost time to go upstairs to the artifact area, so take heart. Yes, take heart. Now, Mr. Argybright was talking about some of these the other night, the Amos light points from about 5,000 to 4,000 years before Christ. And again, as Mr. Argybright mentioned last night, these would have been a lot bigger before they were resharpened down to nothing. But those nice sharp serrations. The one on my side is from a Sunfish Creek in Pike County, western Pike County. The one on the far side is from Lower Salt, by the mouth of Salt Creek, by Richmondale, Ross County. Now, we're going to pick on Mr. Valentine especially. Don't pay any attention to what I have written. How does Mr. Valentine type that? And pay no attention to what I've guessed.
Here?
Yeah, what do you think those...
In this area we call them palmers. But most people,
yeah, maybe they...
Most people call them Amos.
But, I mean, I don't know. But I mean, when you're making a museum display, you've got to call them something. Right. But again, only hypotheses.
What would you think, Dave? Palmer?
I'd say Palmer.
That's what I call it, Palmer.
But as you folks, especially from right around here, know, they're extremely distinctive.
Yes.
Extreme. I mean, they can't be mistaken for anything else. Though those serrations are just so. But the nice thing is, when you're just working with the primary data, you make a database. The interpretation, that you put on the label means nothing. With the database, you still have, this is the point, and this is where it was found. Regardless of interpretation, that stays the same. So, in fact, we can expect that interpretations will change. But anyway, you can see it's very much a kind of that divot into southeastern Ohio. There's like, you can see how from West Virginia and eastern Kentucky, they just come into Ohio just a little, really just a little bit, but they're often found with, like, how many do you have from one site, maybe, Steve?
We had a site that we actually hunted, my brother hunted, we were kids.
Oh, yeah, look who is here. Yes, hello.
I'd say 4 out of 10.
It's dark in here.
I'd say 4 out of 10 we found there were.
There'll be tens of them, right? Tens or dozens. Yes, very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, that's where that dot is there on the line.
But speaking of, and of course all you guys work is, right in that map. Anyway, moving through here though, this is our last 5 or 6 minutes here. The full grooved axes from about 3500 BC. That's when these groundstone tools came into use. And you can see, look at the blade on that axe. It's been sharpened away to about nothing. However, now, who here has been to the Walmart in Waverly? The field right next to it, that's where that's from. Yes, the field right next to the Walmart at Waverly. But again, all the, like I say, respect you guys' privacies about all this stuff I'm showing is either folks in this room or your friends have found all of these. Yes, have found all of these. So you'll be recognizing your own stuff.
Are you calling that an axe? You can't cut a tree with a thing like that.
Aha! Aha! I've done so. But now, now this is totally worn out. The blade is gone. But we had some friends, make ones that don't have the blades be sharpened to nothing, and you can get off chips that look like beaver chips. But now, about every 5 minutes, and you can, cut down a tree the size of your thigh in about 15 minutes. But about every 5 minutes of chopping, you've got to get your piece of sandstone and keep resharpening that bit. And you can see this one. I mean, that's just a tiny stub. Like you say, you can't cut a tree with that because it's so worn out, it's no longer functional. So you made the point, thank you, yes. That one is no longer functional. So rather than being lost, the prehistoric folks likely says, well, this one's done. Yes, help me, Steve.
Do you think that even after it was that shape, that they still could have used it as a hammer?
Well, a lot of times you see how they reversed it. Well, just like my fiance here, Miss Rhodes, knows how many times do I use a tool for what it's not made for. Like, well, and what do we do with a screwdriver? Or even that, and I mean, right. And the prehistoric, there were people too, right? As long as anything has use in it, you'll keep it around and use it for something. Yeah. Anyway, we're winding up now, guys. Winding up. Okay. This one here, here's from Byington in western Pike County and Sunfish Creek, the 3/4 style grooved axe. And with these 3/4 on the side that the groove doesn't go, those are made so you can drive a nice wedge there to keep the thing nice and tight. Yes, nice and tight. But trying to finish up here. Come on, Jabot. Oops, touch that twice, touch it the other way. We won't go into these in detail because, again, any of these images and more, I'll be glad to email or run a copy for anyone that wants it out of the artifact types. So we don't need to use up our fun time with the artifacts now, going over little dots on a map, because we can all do that individually at our leisure. But it just shows on my side, we have the distribution of full grooved axes in Ohio. On the far side, the distribution of the 3/4 grooved axes in Ohio. And it's kind of interesting to, study the different.
And they seem to follow the water.
Yes, I mean, you can, especially the 3/4 ones, don't they? They follow the water more than the full. I mean, like they say in the commercial, one can have hours of fun, but of course now, these are just the state level maps. We have, the detailed topographic maps we can really get into with the distributions, and one can have truly hours of fun with those. Yes, we can. Okay, and this is just, the close-up of South Central Ohio, full groove on my side, 3/4 groove on the other side. And again, email copies of this to whoever, and others to whoever wants them. Anyway, the bell pestil's about maybe 5,000 BC to about 2,000 BC. Pestles, hand malls, whatever. And here's the state, distribution in the South Central Ohio distribution of such. things. Anyway, just a couple I want to... Okay, this is one of the last point types I want to say something about. The good old fish spear type, Matanzas point, whatever you want to call them. Who here has been to the Raritan Whitetail Deer Festival with me? I know some of you guys have, yes. Many of us have. Have any of you, parked, in that field just north of town there, where everybody parks? That field that's not been, plowed for years is one of the biggest sites of these things in the in that part of Scioto County. Really big concentration of them in that what's now that field that we used to park in for the Whitetail Deer Festival. And it's in fact, yes, please. Oh yeah, please.
We have a place just east of Turkey Creek, along the Ohio River, where the first hump has got tremendous history going back, but the second hump, a man named Blake's Farm. The end of Blake's Farm, second hump, towards Turkey Creek, 200 come from there.
Totally interesting.
There's a good friend that lives by there.
And now that, we met in Chillicothe the other day and be around here, I look forward to learning, absolutely.
We argued for years, what do you call them?
Well,
fish spears are not as good as you
But, and people only call them fish spears because they kind of look like a fish.
Yeah.
But, because right there's, the one with Raritan and all that. Anyway, I just want to finish up here with, Okay, the distribution of these stem blank slates from about 4,500 years ago. And, but again, it just shows by different raw materials. And I'm just trying to make the point, that the maps that we make from these are interesting. Yes. Anyway, I see, who can tell me what time it is? And I don't mean what o'clock it is, but what's the time to do?
Upstairs.
It is time to go see the Wirtz collection. Yes, and it's also time to see, and hello behind there, didn't see brother here at first, but time to see the Valentine collection, time to see, and now the Valentine stuff is under glass and stuff, so don't be handling that, please. However, the stuff, there we go, but the stuff from the, on the other table, from the Clarke-May Museum, those cases are purposely open, the glass is off, the stone is laid on the table. All of those are for people to pick up, handle, and for any further questions and comments, let's all do it, face to face while looking at fun artifacts. Why don't we do that? Yes, let's go see arrowheads. Let's go see arrowheads.